Hello, welcome to So and So. I am altering an A-line dress today, cutting 5 inches off the hem and hemming it from the waist. This is the dress with the bodice removed from the A-line skirt. This is a view of the dress from the back. You can see that I have removed the zipper from the skirt portion of the dress. In order to take 5 inches off the bottom of this dress, I need to measure from the edge of the waist down 4 3/8 inches. That will be my cutting line and the new edge of the waist. After cutting the waist off at 4 3/8 inches, I will then be left with a 5/8 inch seam allowance, which will take the hem to exactly the point it needs to be. My next marking will be at the back where the zipper needs to go back in. I will need to open that seam up 5 inches to make room for the zipper. After those markings and measurements are taken, we'll need to turn the dress inside out and measure just how far down the pocket placement is from the old waist edge, so that when we cut the new waist, we'll know exactly where to put those pockets back in place. Now that I know that my pocket was 3 inches from the edge of the waist, I'm going to mark the new waistline, and then I'm going to make another mark 3 inches down from that so that I will know that is where the top of my pocket goes. In this portion of the video, you're looking at the finished pocket before it's taken apart, and then you're seeing the inside seam that needs to be cut and removed so that you can add the new pocket. My rule of thumb is always to just do one at a time. That way you can always go back and look at the other one so that you'll know what to do in case you forget. Sometimes I use a seam ripper to remove serged seams, and sometimes I use scissors. That will depend on you and your preference. A close look here at this pocket that's been taken apart at the top so that you can see how it fits into the seam. In this portion of the video, you will see half the pocket removed from the back half of the dress. This section of the video is just to give you an idea what you've taken apart and how it's going to go back together. In these next few pictures, you're going to see the difference in the waist of the skirt and the waist of the bodice, and then we're going to repair it. There's almost 4 inches difference now in the waist at the bodice and the waist of the A-line skirt. If this were a gathered skirt, we could just draw out the gathers and make it fit. But since it's an A-line skirt, we now have to reshape the lower portion of the dress to make it fit with the upper portion. In order to do this, we're going to go back to the original waist of the skirt, and we're going to mark down how much we're going to cut off. I'm going to make a mark all the way around the front and the back because this dress, since it's A-line, is not straight. If you cut it straight off, your dress will not hang correctly. At this point in the alteration, I stop for a moment and reconsider all my markings and all of my measurements, and then I say a quick prayer before I actually cut, because once I cut, there's no going back. You'll notice that now and then I take the bodice back over to the dress and check things out. This is helpful to me because if there is an error, I can usually catch it at this point. This part of the alteration can be a little intimidating. We're now going to reshape the A-line skirt and take off the excess from the waist. Remember, we made our measurement earlier by placing the bodice next to or on top of the skirt to see just how much we needed to take off. It's time to cut the new waistline and trim the side seams so that the A-line skirt will be in proportion now with the bodice. I'm taking the pieces from the original skirt and placing them centers together so that I can now measure the seams on the side and know just how much to take the skirt in. I'm pinning the cut piece from the original skirt to the new skirt so that it won't shift. And then I'm going to mark the side seams from the cut edges, and that's where I will know where to begin to take the skirt in. This next part is a little bit intimidating. We're now going to reshape the A-line skirt so that it fits the bodice and so that it still hugs the body in the right places. So the next thing we're going to do is go to the markings on the waist and taper that from the waist into the bodice as narrowly as possible. Now I'm flipping the skirt over so that I can do the same thing on the other side. We need to make sure and take the exact same amount off each side or the dress will not fit properly and the zipper will not fall into the correct place. What I'm getting ready to do now is to measure one side against the other. They need to both be as close to the same as possible to make the dress fit properly. What I'm doing now is measuring each line from the edge of the garment to the line that I drew that will be the new stitching line to see if they are exactly the same. If they are not the same, I will make an adjustment. As you will see a little bit later, one of the lines was a little bit larger than the other. So I marked through that line and redrew the line to be exactly the same as the other one. This is where I'm double checking myself to see if my stitches are the same distance from the edge on each side. What you're going to see me do now is correct the first line. I made it a little bit too wide, so I'm going to go back with my pen and put a mark through that line to know that that is the incorrect sewing line. I'm using a gel pen which can be removed from the heat of an iron, and I will go back later and remove all the markings. I have stitched along my new seam line with a basting stitch, and after checking the skirt to make sure it was correct, I went back and put in a permanent stitch. Now I am trimming off the excess fabric. What I'm doing here is removing the basting stitches. And then I will remove the basting stitches from the other side. It's now time to check and see if the new waistline and the newly shaped skirt will fit the bodice at the waist. That's about as close as it's gonna get. It's time now to put the hidden pockets in. As you remember, I put a mark down from the top of the waist 3 inches down onto the skirt. That will be the top of the pocket. I stitched down that 3 inches, and then I stopped and left the opening for the pocket and picked up my seam again and took it down to the bottom. So now we're going to insert the pocket into the dress, and you're going to stitch the front of the pocket to the front of the dress and the back of the pocket to the back of the dress. This can get a little confusing. The reason why is because one side of the pocket will be sewn from the right side of the dress, and the other side of the pocket, although it will be sewn to the right side of the dress, it will be sewn kind of upside down and backwards because it'll be sewn from the inside of the dress. The next thing we're going to do is pin the bodice to the skirt, matching the back edges and the side seams. And that's where we're going to take our 5/8 inch seam that will bring our dress exactly 5 inches higher than it was before. After the dress is sewn together, we will then insert the bottom of the zipper and reinstall it. I hope you enjoyed watching this, my first video, as much as I enjoyed making it. I'm going to make another one very soon to show you the detail on the hidden pockets, attaching the waist together with the bodice and putting in a zipper.